Some folks say is how she's got powers.
Who are you?
Ed Hardy.
What do you want, Ed Hardy? Say it. You're looking for vengeance. Vengeance. Say it.
Hey guys, welcome to Movie Matters. I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And today we're talking about the 1988 film Pumpkinhead by Stan Winston. He directed it. You guys know him from a lot of effects on the Terminator movies, Aliens, a lot of cool movies. He's a legend in the industry. The movie stars Lance Henriksen, who's also in Aliens, and I think he's a pretty underrated actor. I liked the movie. I've never seen it before. I didn't love it. It's about like maybe a 6 out of 10 for me. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, it was fine. There were some aspects that I liked about it that we'll kind of get into, but it wasn't anything incredibly special. I'd say it's worth watching once. But yeah, I mean, for a movie that's about a demon coming to kill people, it's not very scary.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of points where it's kind of it doesn't quite fall into the campy category, but it's very close.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's not
it's
quite there.
Yeah, it deals with a lot of country bumpkins. Like a lot of people from the country, and they've got
Wherever, yeah.
yeah, they've got crazy southern accents, and even the main characters, like the teens, have their kind of southern accent, which is interesting.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a classic cabin in the woods horror movie where teens get wrecked.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It definitely has a lot of horror tropes, but it also subverts a lot of horror tropes, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. I don't know if you picked up on that, but the creature effects are awesome. Stan Winston, he's famous for all his special effects and his realistic set design and makeup and all that. But there's the plot is good, and it's a revenge flick, and then he kind of has second thoughts, and it's how revenge consumes us, and there's a demon in all of us, if you will. I don't know. I liked it. Again, didn't love it. It's first time seeing it. It was interesting. My boss recommended it to me, and he said it was awesome. I think if we had seen this from our childhood, I think we would have liked it more.
Possibly, yeah.
Just because of the effects of it and the demon, Pumpkinhead, and the creature reminds me / demon reminds me a lot of the xenomorph from Alien, the actual Alien.
Yeah.
It's always dripping liquid out of its mouth and drooling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's I feel like there's a element of this that almost we're too old for it now. And it's not as scary, or it's not as impactful. So yeah, I feel like we missed the boat on getting the full effect of this, especially because I think it is kind of geared more towards teenagers, because it's a very soft R-rated movie.
Yeah.
It probably is only R because they dropped the F-bomb a couple times, but overall, it's a lot of the actual tension is around the fear that the teenagers have of getting in trouble for the accident, which shifts into the fear of the demon. But I feel I couldn't really put myself in their shoes because I'm not an asshole riding a dirt bike around and knocking kids over.
Yeah. I think you're not supposed to connect with them. You're supposed to be like rooting for the demon in a sense. It's an interesting take. Like,
Yeah.
you don't really root for the demon or like the villain of the movie, and you're kind of rooting for it a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. And like at least until he starts going after the kids that literally had nothing to do with it.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're a little annoying, and I feel like they did that on purpose so you could still kind of get behind them getting wrecked.
Yeah. Well,
But
their acting, dude, their acting is so bad. It's so bad.
yeah, it's not great.
But I feel bad for the one guy who like sticks around and like waits for Haley or waits for him to come and see that his child's wrecked and dead, and he's like, it was an accident, with that southern accent. It just reminds me of like Forrest Gump, but like that guy like is the nicest one out of the group, and he gets killed first.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think, and like going back to what you were saying about kind of inverting the horror tropes, I feel like they did that like right out of the gate when the killing starts by taking who normally would be the hero and just taking him out first, which is pretty interesting. And like the main guy that's like really deserving of the punishment gets killed in the middle. So like it's like it kind of puts you off balance a little bit because you're kind of like, okay, there's some collateral damage getting to the bad guy, like fine. But then he gets murdered, like halfway through, and you're like, oh, okay. But now he's going to go kill the other two people left that like didn't do shit. Like it's kind of, and that's where I think the dad, kind of, getting some guilt about his, particular revenge tactic, trying to save them, comes in really well and like drives the story in a good direction.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I, again, kind of go into the subverting expectations a little bit, that the inciting incident is Ed Harley's son dying. The teens run him over with the motorcycle, which I thought they were going to kill the dog, and that was going to, incite the whole thing. And usually in most horror movies, unfortunately, the dog dies, and that always pisses me off. So I'm glad they didn't do that, but they killed the kid instead, which is, arguably worse. But like,
and not immediately either. It takes him a long time to finally die.
Yeah, I was like, is he dead? Is he not dead? And like, oh, he's blinking, and then, oh, he's actually dead. And I don't know, I was confused by that a little bit. I think it's just the kids acting. And, the director being like, stay still. Don't do anything, But speaking of the director, Stan Winston, it's his first movie. It was super low budget, $3 million. Didn't do well at the box office. It did spawn a sequel. It's an impressive debut, though, in my opinion. Because originally the producers wanted they sent the script to Stan Winston in hopes that he would want to do the creature effects, but he's just like, oh, it's a small kind of intimate picture, I'm just going to direct it, which is awesome. And like, he's like, I'll help with the creature, but I want to direct it. That's the only way this will work is that way. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And apparently the set was really fun, and he created an awesome atmosphere. Apparently, so like reading on it, he brought a sense of humor and like lighthearted spirit to directing. He assigned the creature effects to his like makeup team and visual effects team. He didn't do anything which was really cool because he's a legend in the industry, and he's just like, I trust my team that I put together to do this. Like, go and do it. And he's like, I will either tell you yes or no. Simple as that. So it was a completely like relaxed, fun set, and like that's awesome. I don't know. That's how like good movies get made, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it comes through a bit. There's I think some missteps in this, which like you could kind of see from like a first time director, but like everybody does seem to be giving it like a good effort, even though they're not great actors in the end. But like it's not like that's why like I don't feel like it falls into like the camp category, because it's not intentionally like trying to be like cheesy and like overly done the way a lot of like these kinds of movies can be. It just like dips its feet in there a couple times, but it's more like an accident than anything else.
It's like, I agree 100%. It's, I didn't really laugh. A lot of these old kind of horror movies are kind of laughable. And the only thing I was really laughing at is the teens acting, which is kind of to be expected. Everything else, I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like, the whole.
There's some really. There's some like really good sequences in it, like the whole witch scene in like her house is really well done. It's like very intense, and like cool because you get a lot of good like world building in there, and like they kind of develop the like mythology of this thing, and stuff that's gonna come kill everybody. But also like. I feel like there's a lot of scenes in this where there's a bunch of tension build up and they don't capitalize on it with a good scare. So I think that's where it's like you could kind of point to some like directorial missteps or, just being a novice.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to say earlier before is that whole, like, the set design is so cool. It's in, like, the backwoods of California, and the lighting is so cool in this. The movie also has one of the longest, most weird credit scenes, like, opening credit scenes ever. It's just, like, excruciatingly boring of just, like, watching the credits over flames. And the movie's a really brisk hour and 26 minutes, and, like, literally 10% of that is like the opening credits. It's like, come on. I literally fast forwarded through the credits. I fast forwarded through them. I was like, this is crazy. So, but the whole witch scene is super cool. The makeup on the witch, played by Florence Schaffler, is really good. Apparently that whole costume and makeup all weighed about 65 pounds, which is pretty crazy. But the acting from the witch is really cool. And like you said, the world building is cool. And then, Ed Harley going over to the grave and digging up Pumpkinhead, which again, it's funny because it's, you expect this creature to have a head of a pumpkin or like in the shape of that. And it doesn't. It's literally called Pumpkinhead because it's buried in a pumpkin patch. Like there's pumpkins around the cemetery, which, it's a cool scene how he digs it up and then brings it back, and then like they take the blood from the kid and the blood from him, and it like makes the alien come alive, and then the creature coming alive is so cool. It's well done. There's a lot of well done parts in it for sure.
Yeah, and like a lot of the set design, particularly the pumpkin patch / cemetery thing, gives me some like Tim Burton, but like from the backwoods kind of vibes. And, like the scene where there's like they're in like dilapidated or like rundown church also has some like Tim Burton-y kind of vibes where like things are at like weird angles and like like the decay that's in a lot of his like design, is kind of present in this movie. So yeah, it really cool overall. Like you said, the creature moments are pretty spectacular. Especially the like transformation and growth sequence is really cool.
Yeah.
And like when you do get close-ups of him, like the detail is pretty awesome. Especially because we rarely actually get to see it. But like, yeah, really well done.
Yeah, and what's cool is it's pretty much there's the connection, like the connection between Ed Harley and the demon, and Pumpkinhead. Like they're linked together, and it's slowly, you can almost see it's like slowly morphing into him, which is crazy and cool, and the detail in that. And just the kills are pretty cool, and like, when Pumpkinhead drops the one girl from the tree, just how he's like sitting up there in a tree like a cat. But it's a classic tale of revenge and how it consumes you, and it's depressing. This movie's depressing. Like The Fly was depressing.
A little
and
bit,
American Werewolf in London was. All these horror movies are kind of depressing if you think about them.
Yeah.
Like all the main characters die in the ones we've watched. Like,
that's true.
Like, I feel like that, isn't common in horror movies, like to have the main characters die.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Typically, I would say no. Every once in a while, though, they'll just kill everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, not most of the time. Yeah, I feel like someone survives and gets to walk away, unscathed.
Yeah, and this,
or maybe in a post-credit scene they'll get dragged to hell or something. But
yeah, yeah. This follows the trope of like the final girl too. A lot of these horror movies in the 80s were about the final girl and the one girl that lives. Laurie Strode with Halloween. Nancy with Nightmare on Elm Street. All those, like, this is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The one girl survives in this. One horror trope I liked that they kind of subvert a little bit, but it doesn't subvert, is when Ed Harley, shoots Pumpkinhead with his shotgun, and then Joel, the main kind of guy who killed his son, walks up to Pumpkinhead and just like, goes and shoots Pumpkinhead in the head, and he's like, oh yeah, now he's dead. I feel like in most horror movies, no one does that. They're just like, oh, is he dead? And then they just like, they like leave him, or they don't do anything. It's like, this was cool because the guy actually goes up and shoots in the head, and then, Pumpkinhead fucking sticks the shotgun through him or the rifle through him and lifts him up.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
Yeah.
I like that it's
like,
a lot.
Yeah, usually there's like you think it's dead, everyone has the sigh of relief, like, oh, thank God, and then it like sits up or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, this time he just walks up and just shoots it. I mean, he still gets killed, but
yeah.
Yeah, it was a good scene though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably watch it maybe one more time in my life. That's about it. Yeah, I mean, there's
I feel like the rewatchability is pretty low.
Yeah,
it's worth watching once, I'd say, especially for Halloween time. Again, it's not super scary, so like people that aren't into, like, especially like, there's no jump scares in this movie at all. So like, if you can't handle that kind of stuff, like, this is like perfectly fine. There's nothing that's particularly bloody either. So like, it's not as gruesome or scary or whatever as some of the other ones that we have or will be watching this month. So
Yeah, I would. I'd be curious to see if this was remade. I think there might be one in the works to remake it. Um, if it were me, I'd make it really bloody, and I would still keep the creature effects, realistic and practical.
all practical, yeah.
And again,
For
we've
sure.
talked about this, and I've especially talked about this, is like they don't make a ton of practical effects. Everything's reliant on CGI. Yeah, it's easier and not a pain in the ass, but it doesn't hit home as much. A classic 80s movie that does it really well with practical effects is The Thing. And then they made a prequel in like 2011, and the director had made the movie with all practical effects because he was such a fan of the original. And he brought the movie to the studio after for his rough cut, and the studio was like, this doesn't look that great. We're going to replace it all with CGI. So they did, and that's the biggest complaint of the movie. So it's like, practical effects are king. I don't know. I think they're great, and we need to get them more in movies.
Yeah, there's a reason why Jurassic Park still holds up, and it's because all the dinosaurs are like robots.
Yeah.
They're not just CGI garbage,
Yeah. Exactly.
There's actually a giant T-Rex head throwing a goat around in the rain. It's like, it's all actually things that like move and look, real. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference. I feel like for the audience, even if you know that it's fake, if it's a practical effect, it has an easier like suspension of disbelief than CGI does, because like you can pick CGI out of anything. Like it's really easy to do, and it's harder, I feel like, to get that connection.
I'm trying to think of a movie lately that's done like really good practical effects. I mean, there's some horror movies out there, sure.
Yeah.
But like, think about like even like more big budget stuff. I don't know. It's food for thought.
John Wick does all, real stunts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good example.
Yeah, that's probably a decent example.
Yeah. If you guys know of any movies that have practical effects that are really good, that are newer, let us know. Drop them in the comments. But yeah, I give it a watch, and that's about it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening.
So, yeah. Next week we've got Reanimator. Yep. And the following week, to close out the month, we've got The Shining, which I think is one of my favorite movies of all time, let alone horror movies. So I think you enjoy it probably about as much as I do. So we're excited to do that one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, stay tuned, guys, and we appreciate you listening.